You've been seeking answers from every dermatologist, doctor, and all over the internet, wondering what on earth this unbearable skin issue is. You know something's up, and you've been suffering and silenced for far too long. This podcast is going to bring awareness to the brutal reality that is topical steroid addiction and withdrawal syndrome. It will give you practical mental and physical tips to help you along your journey and provide you the strength you need to push through each day. You'll hear from real people battling this illness, as well as experts in the field, and I'm also going to share with you what's happening as I battle and conquer TSW. You are not alone, you're not crazy, and you will heal. If there's one thing I know, it's that anyone going through this hell is a warrior. My name is Jennifer Powers, and I welcome you to TSW Journey to Healing. Okay, I want to welcome a very special guest, a new Instagram friend of mine who reached out, a listener of the show. It is such a pleasure to welcome Natalie Wallace. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. So for anyone listening, I love when listeners like you, Natalie, like when you reach out, it's really cool to see how far and wide the show has grown and how far it spreads, and just like the amazing community of people and the listeners that are connecting with me on a daily basis. It just warms my heart and it fills me up. And you are in a very unique position in the sense that I've never had a guest on the show that is pre-TSW journey, but yet someone who is understanding, this is something that is probably going to be in my future, because you're just discovering what's going on with your body and what's happening. So for anyone listening, I got this amazing message a few weeks back from Natalie, just saying that she's a listener of the show and that she is currently in the stage of steroid addiction, and kind of realizing that this is going to be a harsh reality and something that you're going to have to go through. So Natalie, before I continue, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your backstory, who you are, where you're from, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so currently I am in Roanoke, Virginia. I work as a hairstylist. So what's funny is I had very, very minor eczema growing up. So just like the insides of the elbows, behind the knees. And that didn't start even until mid-teens. And then, so I've been working as a hairstylist since 2014. And that's around when my eczema started to like really flare up and get worse, was because I was constantly touching the chemicals from like not just the hair color, but what's used in like everyday shampoos and all of that.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of where it started to like get a little bit out of hand.
Yeah. So you started to figure out, so you have eczema, you're working with your hands a lot. It's super common. We've all heard that story many times. Like a lot of people in industries where they're really active and moving around and using a lot of their, hands in particular. It's especially in the day and age of like, viruses and antibacterial overdosing with like all these hand sanitizers and stuff. It's just really a lot of harsh chemicals and stuff on your skin can certainly cause irritations like that and eczema to flare up. So when did you notice, or what made you realize, hey, maybe this isn't just eczema?
So back a little bit right before into lockdown, I was living in Florida at the time, and I was not making the best money. So I couldn't really afford to go to the doctor to get my steroids.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed I had never really had it anywhere besides like my hands, and then like the insides of my elbows and my knees, which I kind of grew out of, but my hands were the big problem because I kind of need them for my job.
Mm-hmm.
And when I couldn't go get the steroids, it just spread and spread and spread all the way from my fingertips up to my shoulders.
Wow.
And I remember having a talk with my boss and thinking it was just work, and was like, I might have to like change industries because clearly my body doesn't like something.
Yeah.
But I actually, funny enough, I didn't really think it was anything but my eczema at the time, but it had just never done that before. So I went to the doctor, they looked at me and were like, yep, that's eczema, here's a steroid, which I was so thankful for because it was so painful.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until very recently, maybe 7 months ago, that I even learned what this was. That I kind of found out similar to you. I was just like scrolling reels on Instagram and came across a video of a woman who was just so horribly, horribly rashed. And I initially had rolled past it. And then for whatever reason, I was like, I should go back and look at that video again. So I went back and I looked at it and I clicked on the girl's profile, and her whole Instagram was about her eczema and TSW and like her process of going through her healing and all of that. And I remember showing my sister and I was like, oh my God, this is what I look like.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And granted, mine was not to that extent, but that's what it looked like. So that's kind of when that fear set in a little bit of, this is something that's going to have to be in the near future.
That's really, it's scary. I remember yeah, exactly like you said, very similar situation when I discovered it. But I don't think the fear really hit for me until, because I didn't constantly like continue searching. I think I saw a few pictures and I skimmed a couple things and I thought, oh, so you just get off steroids, you go through a withdrawal and then you're good. I didn't realize how serious and how long the whole process could take, how debilitating it could get, until I was like going through it myself. And then I was getting all into the support groups and, reading everybody's testimonials and all these things. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is a much more difficult journey than I had anticipated or thought that it was going to be. So what's good for you, good and not good, I guess there's no there's no right or wrong way to do this, whether you or somebody like me who just kind of this is what I got to do, and then realized, or somebody like you who's going to get tons of information, get out there and research and see like, oh my gosh, I want to prepare myself. I think it's probably better to be the way you are, right? Like you are really looking at all the good, the bad, and the ugly, because like you said to me in our Instagram chat briefly, it's when you see accounts like mine and other accounts, and you listen to things like this podcast and other resources like that, you do understand that there is a very wide variety, a very big range of people that experience symptoms from just a couple months to a few years, some more mild symptoms, some more serious. So it kind of, as rough as it is to wrap your brain around, to think like, oh my gosh, I'm probably going to have to go through this. It doesn't have to mean it's going to be horrific. It means it's going to be really difficult, but you won't know how it's going to affect you until you step into that.
Right.
So what's been your, so you're still on steroids right now currently?
I am, yes.
Do you mind sharing which ones you're on?
Let me take a look. I have them right here.
And my question is also, when you share what they are they still working for you? Because for me, and for so many others, I got to a point where I was taking prednisone and a few others, and they just kind of stopped working. And that was the first time in my 30 plus years of using steroids that had ever happened. So that's when I was like, oh gosh, like this is something different, like going on, Yeah.
Thankfully I've never been on oral steroids. And I think especially after listening to you, I have a follow-up appointment with a dermatologist soon, and I'm nervous like that's going to be his recommendation. And I just, after hearing so many horror stories, I will not go on an oral steroid.
Yes, my advice would be do not.
Yes.
And you know what? I want to encourage you and empower you to, it's always difficult having that conversation with somebody of authority like our doctors and our dermatologists, because we're afraid of getting belittled or patronized or just kind of brushed over, because so many, especially in the United States right now, there are just so few doctors that recognize what this is. So sometimes we feel intimidated to bring it up, but I really do want to encourage you and empower you to bring it up and tell he or she, hey, like, this is what I've been looking up. This is what I've realized. I believe I might have. What do you know about this? Do you know anything about this? And, bring examples or literature, anything you can do to show them. But, yeah, definitely report back after you go to your appointment. I'd love to hear how that,
I will. And I guess to kind of follow up with that and going back to the question of, are the steroids still working? I was using clobetasol. That's what
Okay.
I was using. And then that stopped working.
Okay.
So my last appointment, it was actually my full intention to go in and tell him like I didn't want the steroids anymore and more just, can you lead me in a direction of anything that might help? Do you have any advice? And this dermatologist, unlike so many others, seemed so helpful, and he listened to what I had to say and was like letting me ask questions, answering my questions. And so many before that just look at you and they're like, yep, eczema, here's a steroid. And
Yep.
that's about it.
Yep.
So with this doctor, like I told him, I wanted to not quite say that I was addicted to the steroids because I know, again, from your show, so many doctors just dismiss that immediately.
Yeah.
So I was telling him, I was like, I've just been on them for so long. I think my skin has just gotten too dependent. So
Right.
you're supposed to use them for 2 weeks, stop, like 2 weeks max.
Yep.
I need them every single day, every day.
Right.
So they're not quite working. They're keeping it at bay a little bit, but they're like, I'm in a constant state of like blister and scab and blister and scab. So it's never like going away.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Right. And I think you just brought up a good point. We do have to watch our language. Some doctors are great and other ones are just really dismissive. So you know your doctor best. But I think using language where we're I don't want to say that I don't want to I'm going to watch my words here. I don't want to say that all doctors have like an ego about it, but the reality is they did go to school for this. We did not.
Right.
And so they have that authoritative that like way about them. So I would encourage you to say, instead of saying, hey, I'm addicted to this, why would you, they could take that very like an attack or like, get a little bit defensive or whatever. But if you say, hey, I've been doing some research and aside from the research I'm doing, what I've realized is that this medication is really supposed to be a short-term, not a solution, but a short-term relief. But I really would like to know, what can I do to, fix this without using steroids? Because I am concerned that I'm growing really dependent on them. And what I have seen and what I've read and heard is there are massive side effects and withdrawals from using these for long-term use. So, and then like, again, turn it on that, like, hey, what do you know about that? Have you heard of anybody else that has said this and expressed that concern? So I definitely think it's going to be great that you definitely decline any more, especially oral, because they are so tough on the liver and just the immune system and just so many things. So okay, so clobetasol, I actually remember using that myself as well. And then you are on another one, did you say?
Yes. So he gave me, what is this? Betamethasone.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was on that one too.
So that's what I currently have. And what's kind of like most upsetting to me is, so I intended to go off the steroids then. But just my conversation with him, it felt so encouraging. And he also gave me Eucrisa.
Okay, yeah, yep.
I have never used before. So at least that was like an alternative to a steroid to keep it at bay. So I was like, okay, like you're also the first doctor that gave me something that wasn't exactly a steroid. So I was going to try his regimen for like the month or so before I went back to see him again. And I got home. He also gave me an antifungal because I have now developed spots on my legs, which were never there before. So that had gotten so bad, he gave me an antifungal for it and said, use the antifungal for 2 weeks, then the steroid. And what I didn't know that he did tell me was that if you use a steroid over an eczema spot that did get a fungal infection, you're going to spread the fungal infection.
Yep.
Which is pretty gross.
And it's not that it's just gross. It's very important information that they should absolutely, be sharing with you and with any of us, because that's a really big deal.
And that's the first time I've ever been given an antifungal for my eczema. But so that relief from having that conversation with that doctor was very short-lived.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I got home that afternoon and I was telling my fiance, I was like, oh my gosh, like this doctor actually let me talk. He listened to me. I feel so good about this. So I'm going to keep using the steroids until my next appointment and see like if the things he gives me helps. I also told him when I was at the doctor's office that I learned what some of my triggers are, and one of them is an extremely common preservative that is in almost everything ever made.
Really? Now, what is it, and how did you come to figure that out?
So one of my big ones is anything that is a formaldehyde releaser.
Mm-hmm.
So for the average person, it's not enough to create an issue, but with my job, it's in so many shampoos, so
Oh,
many hair products, so many hair colors that if you touch it for too long, you get a sensitivity to it.
interesting.
And I started to suspect it. I don't remember why, but I started to suspect that that's what it was. So I was kind of like, I downloaded one of those apps where you can scan the barcode of a product and it'll pull up the clean and dirty ingredients in it.
Yes.
I started using one of those. And one time I was in a rush and the store I was in didn't have service inside. I grabbed a Vaseline eczema relief cream and just left. And I grabbed that and an aloe gel. And I was noticing, because I had a lotion at work, I have a lotion at home, a lotion in my car.
Yep.
And I was noticing whenever I used the lotion at work, which was the Vaseline one, that I was more itchy after I put it on. So I was looking at the ingredients, and all the ingredients had this common formaldehyde releaser. So that's how I started to be like, that might be what it is. So I have these patches on my legs that are pretty new, and I wasn't putting a steroid on them. I just wanted them to run their course. So they had almost completely healed. And before I went to bed, I lotioned up my legs. I slathered those spots in the aloe gel that I bought, and I wrapped up my legs for the night, like in the gauze bandages to keep all the lotion on. And I woke, and I did it on my hands too, put my gloves on before I went to bed. And I woke up in so much pain.
Oh, no.
My hands were so swollen that if I like made a fist, my skin was splitting.
Oh, gosh.
And I looked at the back of that bottle, and one of 3 ingredients that was in there was a formaldehyde releaser.
Oh,
and
no. So what does this mean for your job? Because I can't I imagine, like you said, that it's in so many products that you got to be working with.
So thankfully, where I'm working now, we use Aveda products. I don't know if you're familiar with them at all.
Yes.
They are like, I think they're like 98% naturally derived or 99% naturally derived. So none of their products have that in it.
Great.
But they are very fragrant. So I still struggle with that. So basically, if I'm washing somebody's hair, if I'm putting products in somebody's hair, I'm just always have gloves on all the time.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I've even noticed that during this process, because my wrists and my hands have been really, really wrecked with it, that even for a while I wasn't even able to like wash the dishes or do too much. And now just going forward, even if my hands are clear or they stay clear, I just think we have to be more aware of like all the things we're touching at a given day and with our jobs or with day-to-day life, like washing the dishes. Like, why not wear rubber gloves when you're washing the dishes so that you don't have to, and just again, those like toxic free, chemical free, as much like clean products as you can be around or using. Obviously it's the way you want to go, right? So
the day after I like swelled up really bad, I went on a purge through my house. And literally every single thing, I went through everything in my house, and I threw away so many boxes of laundry detergent, dish soaps, makeup, so much stuff.
Yep.
And I went out and I had to buy like all organic, all natural, non-toxic, everything.
Yeah. And it's not, I'm with you on that. And what's frustrating is that, of course, I buy everything organic, from foods to products to everything, plus supplements, just all of it. And then the cleaner the products, the more expensive it is. And then the economy and the crazy world we're in today, everything is like costs an arm and a leg. So it does cost money, but I always am saying this, pay for your health now or your sickness later. So, you know,
Right.
you got to choose. You just got to like bite the bullet and just budget around that. And I should make a course or something around that to help people with that, because it's just been it really is, it doesn't have to be so overwhelming to, you know, look in your wallet and be like, oh my God, my wallet's going dry here because
Right.
I have to live like this. But you just, you know, you cut corners on things when you can, and you just got to do the best you can. And unfortunately for people like you and I and people in the eczema community, the TSW community, we, it kind of could be looked at as a blessing in disguise, right? Because this is what everybody should be living like and doing with their lives anyway. But for people like us, we don't have a choice. Like we have to.
Right.
So in some way, it's kind of a good thing that we're forced to do the healthier, better thing for us,
Right.
take care of us. But it can be scary and overwhelming and very costly. So
Oh, for sure.
I totally get you. I did the exact same thing. I think my last podcast interview with somebody, we talked about this. I purged I have a video of it somewhere, but I threw all the steroid creams, lotions, ointments. I threw them all in the trash,
Mhm.
and I was so excited about it. I was videoing it, and as soon as I was done, I freaked out because I was like, oh my gosh, what if one of them had residue on it? What if I just screwed myself up? What if I touched it? There was
Mhm.
something on there. So it does give you that whole like anxiety, PTSD around this.
Right.
But I think that's the best. There's so many toxic products that we're using, you know, like between you going to work, but also in our house, that people don't even realize it's just so bad to have. Like, even if we
Yeah.
weren't going through this. So I'm with you on that one. So you said you have a fiance. So what has his take been? I'm sure you're filling him in with all of this and what you're learning.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah. So how's that been for both of you guys?
It's been good. It's a little bit like trying to find the right words for it.
Has he
It makes
seen some of the or heard or anything? I mean, I'm sure you've been showing him and
Oh yeah. So I show him all the time, and he lived. I mean, we're living together back in Florida when I had that big breakout in my arms,
Mhm.
and that, like, I believe that was me going through steroid withdrawals. I didn't use them for about 7 months
Mhm.
because I couldn't afford to go to the doctor. So he experienced that with me back when all that was going on. Partially through, it was all the way through lockdown, and then maybe 3-4 months beforehand.
Okay.
So he's experienced that with me before, and thankfully he's like super super supportive about it and tries to be like, as helpful as he can with, like, all the time. He's like, oh, can I do anything for you?
That's
And
very sweet.
as nice as that is, it's kind of tough because it's like, no, you can't do anything for me.
I totally get that. Completely. I'm in the same boat with my boyfriend now. I'm just like, it's like I would love to tell you, yeah, sure, just like snap your fingers, make this go away, please.
Right.
But there is nothing. But you know what, just having that support system, and that's what I want to tell you is when you decide to go for it, you're gonna have, number one, a huge community like myself and other people that have got your back and in your corner. But it is so, so important to have that powerful support network and system that you really can lean on, because you're going to need it. I mean, this is no easy feat.
Mhm.
When, speaking of which, have you decided when or if you're going to withdraw completely and give them all up?
I would really love to. My biggest concern right now is, and I mean, I'm sure I can make a million excuses for the rest of my life. There's never an ideal time to do this. Um, but right now we're looking into buying a house. So the income for work is definitely needed there.
Yeah.
Um, so hopefully whenever we can get that settled, maybe shortly thereafter, because
Okay.
my biggest concern is also I don't really sit still very well. So once I stop using the steroids, at some point I will have to take a break from work,
Yeah.
and I don't really know how long that break would last.
That's true. Well, the good news is, if you can't sit still when you are in TSW, and I speak for all of us, we can't sit still at all because we are constantly itching and scratching and
Yeah.
moving and fidgeting. And so, but I hear what you're saying, and you're exactly right. There is no good time. I mean, I've talked to people that are teenagers all the way through in their 60s and 70s. And everybody, there's always a point in your life where, well, my job, this, my move, my marriage, my wedding, my baby, my pregnancy, my high school career, my college career. I mean, there's never going to be a good time.
Right.
But that being said, you're going to go into this with your eyes wide open and make a commitment to doing it. And
right.
it's, you do have to you have to be okay with the time that you do choose. So there's no right answer here, but, it's good to know that you have him as support, and hopefully you have others too to support you. But what, do you have a wedding date picked out?
We do not yet.
Okay.
We haven't quite been in like a rush for it, especially like I'm not a good planner. So when I start to try to plan, I get stressed out, and I'm not supposed to be stressed with my skin.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I said, wedding planning can be quite stressful. So, but
Yes.
hopefully it's not like that, for you. It's not for everybody, but it can be. But for me, that's one of my biggest triggers, which is so difficult because I don't know a single person on the planet that doesn't experience stress regularly. So
right.
it's very difficult to manage that. But, hopefully when you decide to do it, I mean, what do you think is going to be, I mean, you kind of already said, like, it's hard for you to sit still, and maybe giving up work is going to be really tough. But given everything you've learned, all the episodes of this show you've listened to, and hearings from so many people, what do you think will be the hardest part for you going through it?
So I think somebody you had on your show once, and I thought this was really funny after I thought about it for a bit, I don't remember which episode it was saying how she had already gone through her oh my God, there's a stumbling over words. She's already been through her healing journey, and she is like out the other side. And she was saying how she doesn't really remember it. And she compared it to childbirth. And she was like, once you have the baby, you don't remember the pain of it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was funny because even though I was using my steroids, my hands up to my elbows just broke out so bad. And I was sitting there with all my ice packs, and I was crying to my fiance about it because I know that like going through the withdrawals is going to be so much worse than even that. But I was saying to him, I was like, I don't remember, like, when I was going through the withdrawals a few years ago, I was like, I don't remember it hurting this bad. And he was like, I don't think you were hurting this bad. And then the next day I listened to that episode of your show, which gave me time to really like think really hard about how it was. And just remembering no, it was so much worse than this. But once you're not doing it anymore, like,
yeah,
you just kind of like, your brain just deletes that memory.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of like a trauma response in the body, like a protection mechanism, because I had a child, I have a son, he's 11 at this, right now. And I had to have a C-section, which was crazy traumatic. And it is true. Like people that have multiple children, you think to yourself, if it was that bad, why would you keep going back and doing it again? You do kind of protect yourself and kind of block out the bad and just only think about the good. And what I think, I'm only into my month 9 of this. I don't know how much I've seen improvements, but I'm still very much, I still struggle regularly. Some days, some minutes and hours harder than others. But I started to think just the other day, even, that the people that are closest to me, my immediate family, my son, my boyfriend, people that are with me regularly, I think it's going to stick with them in some ways way more than it's going to stick with me because of what you just said, right? They are not living in this body, and so they're not going through the physical trauma and the turmoil, but they're on the other side witnessing something horrible happening to someone they love. That's this kind of stuff that you can't ever shake and like let really forget. So in some ways, the people that are closest to us are going to carry this with them for the rest of their life, in some ways even more than we do, because and I know that sounds kind of crazy, but that's one of the reasons too why I'm in the middle. Hopefully it'll be released in September, but this specific like journal that I'm creating for us, because I think documenting this and kind of going really deep with it and having it something as a keepsake to be like anything else that comes up in life, any kind of sickness or just like traumatic life event that we go through, to know that you can like look back and be like, that was the most brutal, horrific time of my life. And I can just look at something, open it up and be like, my God, I went through hell and back. I can get through anything.
Right.
Because sometimes, like you said, you will, you can forget, you can actually forget, and life will move on, and you're like, you're going to be so happy and grateful that things are good that you're never going to want to look back. You're not going to want to like remember how horrible it was.
I think that's one of the hardest parts about doing all the research beforehand, especially like knowing that I went through it before but didn't know what it was.
Yep.
And when I'm hearing all of these people talk about their experiences, it's like giving flashbacks of like what that was like.
Yeah.
And just having to like get in the mental headspace to put yourself through that again.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I was in the same boat as you. I think, it is August 2022. I believe it was probably July or August, maybe 2018, but maybe 2019. I think there was at least 2 or 3 times that my body was telling me, hey, we're going through a withdrawal. I just had no idea what it was. And of course, the doctors don't know what this is either. So they just put you right back on the steroids, and the problem continues to cycle and cycle and cycle. So it is frustrating. I had that moment of weakness just over this weekend, just a few days ago. I cried hysterically to my boyfriend, broke down, and just got to that really dark and low place. And I thought, if I had just known that 4 years ago, I'd be done, and my life would have, who knows where it would be, all the woulda, coulda, shouldas, you know what I mean?
Right.
But for somebody, but we really can't do that, because I don't know, I'm a very like spiritual person. I feel like God, I mean, this is the path that we're on we're exactly where we're supposed to be at the time that we're supposed to be on it. And so as much as it doesn't make sense, and sometimes it sucks, and you're like, why couldn't I have known? You just have to trust that this is all happening exactly as it's supposed to. And it's a lot easier said than done sometimes, but I do think you're going to be in a better spot though than most people. I really do believe that. I think you're getting, knowledge is power, right? Knowledge with action is major power. So you now have the tools, you now know probably a lot more about this than your dermatologist. And so, you can kind of go forward with whatever direction you choose when you decide to push play here and say, I am going to go through hell, but I'm tough enough. I can do it. And even when I'm really weak, I'll have people to lean on. And and it's going to be the beginning of the end of feeding our bodies these things that are just band-aids and not solutions to our bigger issue, right? So I think for me, that's going to be one of the tough things is knowing, when you're done through TSW, unless you were a child that outgrew eczema, as adults, we may still suffer with eczema flare-ups here and there. And so what's good for you is you've already figured a trigger out. And if you can find another trigger or two, and you be able to manage it yourself without steroids or medication, that's going to give you such an empowered feeling. So even though you'll feel, oh, I have a flare coming on, or I have one for a few days, you'll know how to like get through it and feed your body what it needs, instead of these toxic drugs that are, doing more damage than good. So I think you're already off to a really good start, even though you haven't officially started yet. You really do have a lot in your toolbox or whatever, to go forward and feel like, okay, I can do this. I hope you feel like
that. At times, yes, and then at times, no. I have the same thing of like, why didn't I know this 3 years ago? I could be done, but
yeah. What would you say to somebody else? I always like to ask this question. What would you like to say to someone else who might be listening, who's like, oh shit, she's in my position right now. I was hoping and praying that this wasn't what I have, but now after listening, to this episode, I think that I'm in the exact same spot, and I'm probably going to have to go through this. And I don't think I ever want to. I think I want to keep using steroids forever, because this sounds like a living nightmare, and I don't think I can bear it. I don't think I can go through it. I'm too scared. I don't think I have the courage to do it. And I know this is kind of a hard question because you yourself have not gone through it, but you do know that you're going to do it. So what would you say to that person that's in the same exact boat as you?
I mean, more than anything, I would say find a support community, because even like through your show alone, I've gotten so many more resources, and it is very comforting seeing the people who are healed.
Yeah.
And that is one of the very few things that is helping me to be like, I just have to do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's great advice, because I have had people on the show from all different stages, you being the very first one who is not yet going through the journey, which is so cool. But I think it's important to show people going through this in all different stages. And there is actually a section, if you're listening to this show, obviously it's on all the major podcast platforms, but it's also over on YouTube. The links are all in the show notes. If you are listening to this and you click on the description below, you should be able to see everything. But on YouTube, and some of these are video podcasts that you're able to see me and the guests, and some of them are just audio, but all of them, they're broken down into I have different playlists. And so one of the playlists is, healed from TSW. So you can actually listen to the episodes. They're organized over there rather than you kind of try to figure it out and guess. So you can listen to them there. But I agree with you, Natalie. I think that like listening to getting all the information is great. And then just constantly reassuring yourself, saying, hey, if everybody ends up healed and okay, that's going to be me too. No matter how bad it is, no matter how long it takes, if I can like start living my life without ever turning backwards and ever having to look at using these kind of drugs ever again, and I'll never go through something as horrible as TSW again, that is going to be the biggest gift and blessing that I can give to myself, then that's what I have to do. So
yeah.
Man, I just want to thank you so much. Like, this was such a cool conversation and such a great perspective. Even for me, it kind of brought me back, just like listening to your story about when I decided to, because it's now August, and it was this time last year that I was finishing up my summer down at my family beach house. And I had a wedding just a couple weeks, September, I think it was September 12th, September 10th or 12th. And I had a wedding to go to. And that's right. I think it was like this week last year that I went to my dermatologist, and I got on got a prescription for prednisone, because I said, I'm going to a wedding and I need my skin to look amazing and it looks like crap. So give me what you got. And that used to be my favorite drug. I got on it, and, it was just a few days before the wedding that it just started to stop working. And luckily I went to the wedding and I looked good, like definitely but it wasn't working. And so it was right after that wedding, the middle of September, that I was like, okay, now something's up. And I think it was just maybe a few more weeks after that I started to discover what this was. So I remember being in the same exact boat that you're in, and just like looking at pictures and being scared to like start this, because I thought like, oh gosh, like well, I'll just go through it. But I didn't look at too many, and I just kind of, like I said, I dove in. But I still think it's so hard when you look at, you want to get all the knowledge, and you want to study it, and you want to find out what you have in store for you. But at the same time, don't let that, it can turn into a full-time job. Don't let that like consume all of your time, because the reality is, you can see some pretty horrific pictures of these poor souls that are going through, oh my God, so much worse than what I've had to go through. And we all have to go through like hell, but it can scare the living daylights out of you. So, just go in with your eyes wide open, but also keep them shut in some ways, because you're going to have to, right, maybe a little bit. But I just so am grateful for you being on the show. Is there any last minute do you have any questions, or do you have any last comments that you want to say to anyone listening to this episode?
I don't think so. I don't like you said, keep your eyes a little closed. I don't know how much I want to know, how much more I want to know.
Listen, here's the summary. It's going to suck, but it's going to be tough, but you're tougher. And there is so much love and so much support. I have never, I've been through some shit in my life. I've been divorced. I've gone through a lot of things. And there's one thing I can say about this TSW community. It is the most empowering, uplifting, incredible group of human beings that and I'm not just saying that. When you have gone through some really horrible experience in life, and something that, like as serious as this, they're like the best people you could ever meet. So in that sense, I've said this on so many episodes. I'm so grateful to go through this nightmare because I would never have had the opportunity to have the show or to meet people like you. And it's a really amazing thing. So you are in good hands whenever you decide to push play. I hope that let me know so that I can let the audience and the viewers know, like when you decide to go for it and your day one of, withdrawal begins. We're all going to be here. I speak for everybody to cheer you on and to hold your hand and give you virtual hugs and all that good stuff. But you can do it. And I'm glad that you are gaining the knowledge that you need to be able to step into this when you decide it's the right time.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a stressful thing to think about, but I know it will be better when it's done. So
it will, and your life will be that much better. So thank you so much. And honestly, thank you for being a subscriber and a listener. That means so much to me. I am just so grateful for people like you. And I can't wait to hear how your healing progresses. And then one day we will have a huge party and celebrate all of this being behind us. And it will be a glorious day. So thank you very, very much. And definitely be sure to, share the show with your friends, your family, when you decide to help educate them on, what you're going through or going to go through. And I'm sure that will give them some, helpful tips and open their eyes a little bit too. So thank you so much, Natalie. And I'll pray for you. I hope you have a really good, rest of this month. And I hope good luck with the house.
Thank you.
All right, Natalie, I'll talk to you soon.
All right. I'll talk to you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please remember to subscribe and leave feedback. With your help, we can spread awareness together. So please share the show with anyone you know who may be struggling with a medical condition and using steroids to treat it. And be sure to check out the blog for helpful resources to aid you along your TSW journey at tswjourneytohealing.com.